I worked the tow deck on the Voring transfer yard for 11 years before the policy ever touched me by name. The yard ran under banks of daylight spectrum lamps that never dimmed, because the Ashendri who built the place didn't trust shadows. They trusted records instead, exact to the gram, the second, the breath. Every worker carried a file longer than their own memory of themselves, and most of us never thought about that until the day it mattered. The day it mattered, a tow pallet of sintered hull plate sheared its forward strap during a hard dock and came down on the catwalk where Tomas Reyes was running a line check. I was 40 meters off, hauling a spool toward the inner ring, close enough to hear the strap go and far enough that nobody who saw what happened next has ever fully agreed on how I covered that distance in the time I covered it. I don't remember the next 4 minutes. Nobody does. That's the part the Ashendri are proud of. What I have instead is the official record, which says this. On that date, at that hour, no qualifying extraction injury event occurred involving worker designation E-Tarn. Subject completed shift without incident. File closed. What actually happened, according to 3 other dock hands who were standing close enough to see it and far enough to keep their hands, is that I got under the falling edge of that plate with Tomas half pinned beneath the collapsed strap line. And when the tensioner jammed and there was no time to find a blade, I bit through 11 millimeters of Duralis tow cord with my own teeth to free his arm before the second support gave. They told me this twice, in 2 different bars, on 2 different stations, years apart, and both times I had to ask them to slow down, because I have never once recalled it. The first time, a loader named Priya Nasser laughed when she said it, the way you laugh at something that still doesn't sit right, and told me my mouth had been full of blood for an hour afterward, and I never once mentioned it. Just kept working the line like a man finishing a normal shift. The second time, a rigger named Costa told it flatter, no laugh at all, and said the sound of it, cord snapping under a man's own jaw, was the kind of sound that stayed with the people standing near it even after the policy made sure it didn't stay with me. I have no sound to remember. I have only their faces when they tell it, and the small, careful way they both go quiet right after. The Ashendri call this neutral reentry. It is mandatory after any extraction injury event involving human crew, and the official position is that it leaves 0 residue, no fragment, no flicker, nothing that could later distort an Ashendri inquiry with an unreliable human witness. Clean reentry, clean mind, clean file. I believed that, more or less, for 6 years. Then I went in for my annual aperture scan. The Ashendri run dental forensic archiving the way some species run religion. Every yard worker gets rescanned once a cycle, full jaw, full enamel mapping, down to the micron, because teeth, unlike memory, do not lie, do not drift, and do not get edited by policy. The Ashendri will argue, calmly and at length if you let them, that the human mouth is the most honest organ a body carries. It cannot be coached, cannot be coaxed into agreeing with a clean file, and records load on it the way a hull takes a stress fracture, permanently, whether anyone meant for it to or not. It is the single record on this station the Ashendri trust over their own ledgers, over their own censors, over their own witnesses, and they trust it because in 400 years of running the archive it has never once been wrong. The scanner officer that cycle was a junior Ashendri named Aval Kaur, narrow-shouldered, precise in the way all of them are precise, reading my jaw scan off the projection plate with the particular stillness her kind gets when something in front of them refuses to match something behind them. She asked me to hold still. She ran the scan again. Then she asked me, very carefully, whether I had ever sustained an impact injury to the left mandible. I told her no. My file agreed with me. She turned the projection so I could see it. A hairline crack ran along the base of my lower left canine, old, fully set, the kind of fracture that happens once and then simply lives in the bone forever. Lodged in the crack, microscopic, was a thread of foreign fiber. Her scanner identified it in under 2 seconds. Duralis tow cord, industrial grade, consistent with cargo restraint applications. The scan cross-referenced equipment failure logs automatically, the way it always does, and it found one match, 6 years back, one hard dock, one sheared forward strap. My file for that date still read, no qualifying event occurred. Aval Core did not say anything for a long moment. I have watched a few Ashendri get rattled in 11 years on this yard, and it is a quiet thing with them. No raised voice, no widened eyes, just a kind of total stillness, like a machine holding a value it has no register built to contain. Her ledger told her nothing had happened to me. My jaw told her something had. Both records came from her own people, built by her own people, and her own people do not build records that contradict each other. That was supposed to be the whole point. The dental archive cannot be edited, she said, mostly to herself. It was never given that function. There was never a reason to. I asked her what that meant for my file. She didn't answer right away. She pulled the strap failure incident report instead and read it twice, and somewhere in the second reading her face did the thing their faces do when a number won't resolve, a faint tightening at the jaw ridge, gone almost as soon as it arrived. The incident report listed one injured worker, treated and released. It did not list a second worker who had, by every physical measure on her own scanner, done something to stop a few hundred kilos of hull plate from finishing what it started. Policy requires me to log the anomaly and refer it to reentry compliance for a full memory integrity review, she said. They will purge the discrepancy and reissue your record as clean. I told her that was fine. I meant it. I had carried 6 years of not knowing without it costing me sleep, and I wasn't going to start losing sleep over it now just because someone had finally shown me the shape of the hole. She looked at the crack on the projection a while longer instead of closing the file. I am required to delete this image once the referral is filed, she said. Then, after a pause that ran a little too long for an Ashendri, I have not filed it yet. She printed the scan instead, a flat hard copy, the kind nobody uses anymore, the kind that can't be purged by a network call. She slid it across the counter without a word, the way you'd hand someone something you weren't sure you were allowed to hand them, and logged the referral 4 minutes later exactly as policy required. By the time compliance came back with the standard clean reissue, there was nothing left in the system to contradict it. There was only the hard copy, folded now into a worn square in my jacket pocket, a hairline crack in a strip of magnified bone, a thread of cord too small to see without help. I still don't remember those 4 minutes. I never will. That part of the policy works exactly as advertised. But I carry the printout the way some men carry a photograph of someone they can't quite picture anymore, not as proof of what I felt, because I felt nothing. There is nothing there to feel. I carry it as proof that whatever I am, under the parts a policy can reach, is not negotiable down to nothing just because nobody, including me, was left able to say so. I have thought about it more than I expected to, on long shifts with nothing else to think about, and I have decided I don't need the 4 minutes back to know what they cost. The crack told me that on its own, without asking my permission, in a language no committee gets to edit. Tomas Reyes still works the far dock. He buys the first round whenever our shifts cross, and he has never once explained why, and I have never once asked him to. Some nights I think he's waiting for me to remember so he can stop carrying it alone. Other nights I think he already knows I never will and buys the round anyway, because a debt doesn't need a witness on both ends to still be owed. We don't need the memory between us. The crack in my jaw and the look on his face when we pass each other on the catwalk say everything the record was built to erase.